going to talk about the second type of solar energy, and that's concentrating solar thermal. So if we take the direct unscattered portion of sunlight incident on Earth, then we can accurately focus that sunlight using mirrors and lenses, and then absorb that concentrated sunlight to really generate high amounts of heat at high temperatures. And so obviously, again, just very similar to the ways that we've used heat for fossil fuel burning type power plants, for geothermal as well, we're able to use that heat in a typical Rankine cycle to heat a fluid. It could be water or air, expand that fluid and drive a turbine. And of course, that turbine is connected to a generator. So this is, again, what we've seen similarly with other types of power plants. But here, we're using the fact that we can focus direct unscattered sunlight onto an absorber and really collect a great amount of energy that way. Obviously, then, concentrating solar is best for locations with lots of direct sunlight and low atmospheric moisture. So places where there's arid desert, particularly near the equator, are the most attractive. So in the US, we're talking states like Nevada and Arizona, New Mexico. There have been other installations across the world, including a recent one in Spain, southern Spain, where 2 units, each at 50 megawatts, were installed recently. And to make this work, again, the incident solar has to be concentrated onto some kind of absorber. That absorber has to have high absorptivity and low emissivity, as we talked about previously for solar thermal. And also, what is unique about concentrating solar, or can be, is that we take advantage of some thermal storage attributes of a concentrated solar plant. So as you can imagine, we may have periods of high direct sunlight throughout the day, and then certainly at nighttime we have zero. And that's not attractive necessarily because we may need electricity both during the day and at night. Or we may be at peak periods at noon on a particularly sunny day and be generating more electricity than we actually can deliver. And so we need a way to store that extra electricity or that extra energy. So oftentimes some kind of fluid, a molten salt, a thermal storage fluid with a high thermal storage characteristics, high heat capacity, can be used to store the heat. So we still collect the heat on the absorber, and then instead of it being used right away in a Rankine cycle, in a heat exchange with a fluid for a Rankine cycle, we can store that heat in this molten salt mixture. And because of the characteristics of that mixture, it's maintained at 500 to 600 degrees Celsius for several hours. Often this is done in what's called a power tower that integrates both the absorber as well as the thermal storage characteristics. These types of installations can be very expensive with incredibly high capital costs. Now, I want to make sure you understand that really the key to all of concentrating solar is the design of this trough, the receiver that is used to actually bring the sun's direct sunlight in and concentrate it to capture as much thermal energy as possible. So this parabolic trough is parabolic because it allows us to do that kind of focusing that we need onto the absorber. Oftentimes these troughs are used in conjunction with a tracking system because, as you can imagine, the angle at which they're positioned and where they're positioned will depend on where the sun is in the sky. So we often want to use a tracking system to ensure we're capturing as much of that sun's energy as we can. Oftentimes there are arrays of these parabolic troughs, many arrays, and I think there's a good picture in your book as well on these that shows they can take up quite a lot of land mass in order to capture a sufficient amount of heat to provide, say, 50 megawatts of electricity. The receiver is designed to maximize the amount of energy we can actually capture, but also designed to minimize heat loss. So we don't want to capture that heat energy and then lose it to the atmosphere, to the environment. So we need to design it to try and minimize that heat loss. That's often done by including some kind of evacuated glass tube arrangement that has high transmittance, so it allows the sunlight through to hit the receiver, but it surrounds the metal absorber tube often so that it minimizes the amount of heat that might be lost through conduction and convection. So generally speaking, the absorbers have about a 0.92 to 0.96 absorptivity, but yet a 0.14 emissivity. And again, that too ensures that we are absorbing as much as we can and not letting too much out. Many of the parabolic troughs are made in a modular way that reduces manufacturing costs in particular and helps with maintenance if one needs to be replaced. And really, concentrating solar has been around for over 20 years in different forms, but we do have a lot of experience with concentrating solar, and recent innovations in absorber tube design has resulted in reduced costs. Also, the mirrors themselves, some issues have been encountered with respect to the mirrors becoming dirty. It may not be as visible to the human eye, but dirty mirrors means we're not able to reflect the sunlight and concentrate it in the way that we want. So there have been various innovations around cleaning those mirrors. But even so, concentrating solar is not super popular because of very high capital costs, even though these costs are coming down. And in your book on page 676 is figure 13.17, and it shows a comparison of the costs and the cost projections of different types of installations, one in Tucson, Arizona, and one in Seattle, Washington, and compares them with PV. And so we see that there are projections that the cost of concentrating solar continues to fall and is becoming more competitive with the other types of solar energy that we take advantage of for our energy consumption needs. All right, now I have another video for you to watch to help you better understand concentrating solar.